Your soulmate linked to your ex has finally spoken the truth. My beloved child. The person connecting your soulmate to your ex has finally broken their silence, and what they revealed is not what anyone expected. For weeks, something about that connection has felt wrong. A conversation that seemed innocent. A name mentioned at the worst possible moment. A strange distance from your soulmate whenever your ex entered the picture. You may have wondered whether something was happening behind your back, but the truth is far more complicated. Because this person didn't speak up to expose a secret romance. They spoke because they could no longer watch your soulmate carry the blame for something your ex quietly set in motion. And there is one detail they almost refused to reveal, a private conversation where your name changed everything. Don't skip, because what was said in that conversation explains why your soulmate suddenly started behaving differently around you. It happened when your ex reached out to someone close enough to your soulmate to influence what they believed. At first, the message sounded harmless, almost concerned. Your ex claimed there were things about your past that your soulmate deserved to know. But instead of offering proof, they planted questions. Small doubts. Carefully chosen pieces of information that sounded believable because they contained just enough truth to hide what had been twisted. Your soulmate listened, but something unexpected happened. Rather than immediately believing your ex, they began asking questions your ex wasn't prepared to answer. Why bring this up now? Why were certain details missing? And why did every version of the story seem designed to make your soulmate walk away from you? That was the moment the person witnessing everything realized this wasn't simply about the past. Someone was trying to control what happened next. But your soulmate's response stunned them even more, because instead of turning against you, your soulmate quietly decided to investigate the story for themselves. Then came the discovery that finally forced this person to speak. Your soulmate compared what your ex had said with something you had told them long before. Something you probably didn't even realize they remembered. One detail matched perfectly. Another didn't match at all. And that contradiction opened the door to everything else. Your soulmate began noticing how certain conversations had been conveniently edited, how important context had disappeared, and how your ex seemed to know exactly which emotional pressure points to use. But here is where the story changes. The person who finally confessed admitted that your soulmate already knows much more than they have shown you. They have been silent not because they believed the worst about you, but because they wanted certainty before bringing this mess into your life. And just when they thought they had uncovered the real reason your ex became involved, they found something else, a message your ex never expected your soulmate to see. What was inside that message revealed who this entire situation was actually about. The message wasn't really about your soulmate at all, it was about you, and that realization changed the entire meaning of what had been happening. Your ex had written something that exposed a motive no carefully edited story could hide. They weren't simply trying to warn your soulmate about the past. They were trying to find out how serious your soulmate's feelings for you had become. One sentence asked whether your soulmate still talked about you when you weren't around. Another questioned whether they were planning something more permanent with you. But the strangest part came afterward. Your ex wanted to know whether your soulmate had ever said they would choose you regardless of what anyone else revealed. Why would someone from your past need that answer so badly? Your soulmate wondered the same thing. And instead of confronting your ex immediately, they stayed quiet, because they suspected there was still another layer waiting underneath. That silence made your ex believe the plan was working. They continued feeding small pieces of information through the person caught between them, never realizing that this person had begun noticing the contradictions too. Finally, your soulmate asked them one direct question: "Did my soulmate's ex ever tell you why this suddenly matters so much?" There was a long hesitation. Then came the truth. Your ex had apparently heard that your soulmate was considering taking a serious step toward you, and that possibility triggered everything. Suddenly, the timing made sense. The questions. The warnings. The attempt to reopen old misunderstandings. Your soulmate wasn't being approached because somebody had discovered something new about you. They were being approached because somebody feared they were about to lose the ability to influence your future. Stay till the end, because the person confessing this still hadn't revealed the most uncomfortable part: how your ex learned about your soulmate's intentions in the first place. And that answer came from somewhere your soulmate never expected. Someone within their own circle had casually shared information that should have remained private. It wasn't necessarily done with cruel intentions. At least, that's what the person telling the truth insisted. But one seemingly harmless conversation traveled farther than anyone realized, eventually reaching your ex. Your soulmate had apparently spoken about wanting to clear away the uncertainty between you. They had mentioned that they were tired of allowing old stories, outside opinions, and unfinished history to determine what happened next. Somehow, those words reached the one person who understood exactly what they could mean. Your ex realized your soulmate wasn't drifting away from you. They were moving closer to making a decision. But then the person confessing everything revealed one final detail that made your soulmate go completely quiet. Before your ex started asking questions, they had received information from someone who knew something deeply personal about your connection. And your soulmate immediately recognized who that person had to be. Your soulmate recognized the person because only a tiny circle knew that particular detail about your connection. It wasn't something publicly discussed, and it certainly wasn't something your ex should have known. That narrowed everything down immediately. But instead of confronting anyone, your soulmate did something unexpected. They asked the person who had finally spoken the truth to repeat every conversation exactly as they remembered it. That's when another contradiction surfaced. Your ex had repeatedly suggested that you were still emotionally attached to the past, yet privately, they had been asking whether you had completely moved on. Those two stories couldn't both be true. Your soulmate suddenly understood that the uncertainty wasn't coming from anything you had done recently. Someone else was afraid that the chapter between you and your ex had truly closed, and your soulmate had become undeniable proof of it. But there was another revelation waiting. The person caught between your soulmate and your ex admitted they had withheld one conversation because they feared it would create unnecessary conflict. During that conversation, your ex had asked a strangely specific question: what does your soulmate see in them that nobody else does? Your soulmate froze when they heard this. It wasn't the question of someone simply sharing concern. It sounded personal. Almost as though your ex was trying to understand why your soulmate's feelings had remained strong despite everything whispered around them. Then came the answer your ex apparently hadn't expected. The person told them that your soulmate had never described you as perfect. Instead, they had spoken about your sincerity, the way you made them feel understood, and how something about your connection continued pulling at them even during periods of distance. That answer ended the conversation abruptly. And afterward, your ex's behavior changed. The messages became less frequent, but far more calculated. No more broad warnings. Now your ex wanted dates, details, and information about when your soulmate might speak to you next. That shift bothered the person enough that they stopped answering, and finally brought everything directly to your soulmate. Something huge was waiting inside the last message they showed them. Your ex had written that there was one thing your soulmate still didn't know about you, something supposedly powerful enough to change their decision completely. But when your soulmate demanded proof, none appeared. Instead, your ex suddenly asked for one final private conversation before your soulmate spoke to you. Your soulmate refused. And that refusal triggered a response nobody expected, because your ex finally revealed why keeping the two of you uncertain had become so important, and the reason had nothing to do with wanting your soulmate for themselves. The reason was far more personal than jealousy. Your ex wasn't trying to take your soulmate away from you. They were terrified that if you and your soulmate finally spoke openly, something your ex had said about you long ago would be exposed as false. That was the secret behind the questions, the carefully timed warnings, and the desperate need to know when your soulmate planned to approach you. Your ex wasn't protecting anyone. They were protecting an old version of the story. And once your soulmate understood that, another memory suddenly made sense. Months earlier, someone had repeated a claim about why your previous relationship ended, but the details had never sounded completely right. Your soulmate had dismissed it then. Now they wanted to know exactly where that story had originated, and the person who finally spoke the truth knew the answer. They admitted your ex had told different versions of the same story to different people. In one version, you had walked away without explanation. In another, you supposedly wanted something your ex couldn't give you. But there was a third version your soulmate had never heard before, and this one changed everything. Your ex had privately admitted that you tried to have an honest conversation before things ended, but they weren't ready to hear what you were saying. That single admission contradicted the picture later painted of you. Your soulmate didn't become angry immediately. They became quiet. Very quiet. Because suddenly they weren't asking whether you had hidden something from them. They were wondering how many of their doubts had been built from somebody else's unfinished feelings. And then they asked the person sitting across from them one question that made the room feel completely different. What exactly are they afraid I'll discover if I talk to my soulmate directly? For several seconds, there was no answer. Then the person finally admitted what your ex had been trying hardest to keep buried. Your ex believed that once you told your soulmate your side without anyone interfering, your soulmate would realize you had been blamed for a decision you never made alone. But that wasn't even the biggest revelation. There was apparently a specific moment from your past that your ex had repeatedly described in a completely different way, and someone else had witnessed what actually happened. Your soulmate immediately asked for that person's name. The confession came reluctantly, because bringing this person into the situation could unravel everything at once. And when your soulmate heard who the witness was, they recognized the name instantly. This wasn't a stranger. It was someone your soulmate had already spoken to recently, and during that conversation, they had said something about you that your soulmate hadn't understood until now. That earlier conversation suddenly returned to your soulmate with frightening clarity. The witness had said, "There are two versions of what happened, but only one person has been carrying the consequences." At the time, your soulmate assumed it was simply an opinion. Now those words sounded like a warning. So your soulmate reached out again and asked one careful question: "What did you actually see?" The witness hesitated because they had stayed out of this for a reason. But eventually, they described the moment your ex had repeatedly used to shape everyone's understanding of you. According to them, you hadn't simply abandoned the relationship the way the story suggested. There had been a conversation beforehand. A difficult one. You had asked for honesty about something that kept damaging the trust between you, and when the answer never truly came, the relationship began collapsing under questions neither of you could keep avoiding. Your soulmate listened without interrupting, because one enormous question was forming: why had this part been removed every time your ex told the story? The witness didn't pretend you had been flawless either, and strangely, that made your soulmate trust them more. They admitted both of you had been hurt. Both had made mistakes. But the difference was that your ex later simplified everything into a story where they were powerless and you were responsible for the ending. Then came the detail your soulmate had been waiting for. Shortly after the breakup, your ex apparently told this witness that someday you would move forward, and when you did, people might finally start asking questions about what really happened. That sentence stayed buried for a long time. Until your soulmate entered your life. Suddenly, someone was close enough to you to challenge the old narrative, and serious enough about you to actually care whether it was true. Don't skip, because your soulmate was no longer investigating your past. They were beginning to understand why your present had become threatening to someone who thought the past would never be questioned. But the witness had saved one detail for last. There was something your ex had said shortly before contacting the person linked to your soulmate. They had apparently learned that your soulmate wanted to speak with you about building something more serious, and their immediate response wasn't anger. It was panic. They asked whether you had already told your soulmate what really happened back then. Those exact words changed everything. If your ex genuinely believed their own version, why would they be afraid of you telling yours? Your soulmate asked the witness that question, and the answer came softly. Because they know your soulmate never heard the whole story. That was enough. Your soulmate made a decision right there. No more intermediaries. No more whispers. No more allowing your ex to control the conversation. But before your soulmate could reach you, another message arrived from your ex, and this time, instead of another warning, it contained an admission your soulmate had never expected to receive. The admission was only a few lines long, but your soulmate read it more than once because it quietly confirmed what everyone else had been afraid to say. Your ex admitted that some things had been explained badly after the relationship ended and that emotions had influenced what they told other people. But then came the sentence that mattered: they never expected those old conversations to reach your soulmate. Suddenly, the timing of everything became undeniable. Your ex hadn't stepped forward because new information about you had appeared. They stepped forward because your soulmate was getting close enough to discover that the old story had never been complete. Yet your soulmate noticed something else. Even while admitting this much, your ex carefully avoided saying exactly which details had been changed. Why confess halfway unless there was still something bigger being protected? Your soulmate didn't answer immediately. They showed the message to the person who had finally exposed the connection, and their reaction revealed that they knew exactly what was missing. For the first time, that person stopped protecting anyone. They admitted your ex had approached them with one specific request: if your soulmate ever asked about your past, they were supposed to encourage them to wait before speaking directly to you. Not forever. Just long enough for your ex to have another conversation first. That detail disturbed your soulmate more than anything else. Why was delaying one honest conversation between the two of you so important? The answer became clearer when the person revealed what your ex planned to do with that extra time. They wanted to clear up certain things with people who had heard different versions of the breakup. Your soulmate immediately understood what that could mean. Once separate witnesses started comparing what they remembered, the contradictions would become impossible to ignore. And your ex seemed desperate to reach those people before your soulmate did. But they were already too late, because your soulmate had heard enough from the witness to recognize the pattern. Then your soulmate did something nobody around them expected. Instead of confronting your ex with accusations, they sent one calm question: what exactly are you afraid they will tell me? Minutes passed without an answer. Then longer. Finally, your ex responded, but not with another story about you. They wrote that there were decisions made near the end of your relationship that you never fully knew about either. That stopped your soulmate cold. Until that moment, everyone assumed the hidden truth concerned something your ex had said after the breakup. Now it appeared the real secret began before the relationship even ended. Your soulmate asked what decision they meant, and your ex refused to explain through messages. But the person who had already confessed recognized the reference immediately. They looked at your soulmate and revealed that your ex had once made a private choice involving your future without telling you, and someone close to you had known about it the entire time. That private choice changed the entire story your soulmate thought they were uncovering. According to the person who finally spoke, your ex had once decided to step away emotionally before ever admitting it to you. But instead of telling you directly, they confided in someone close to the situation and asked that person not to interfere. You continued trying to understand why everything suddenly felt different while your ex had already begun making decisions in silence. Your soulmate's expression changed when they heard this, because it explained something the witness had mentioned earlier: you weren't reacting to one unexpected ending. You were reacting to weeks of confusion that nobody had properly explained. And the person who knew about that private decision had remained silent all this time. Why? Your soulmate wanted that answer immediately, but what they discovered made the connection to your ex even more complicated. The person admitted they had believed staying quiet would prevent more pain. Your ex had told them the relationship was already beyond repair and that revealing the earlier decision would only reopen wounds. For a while, they accepted that explanation. But when your soulmate appeared in your life and your ex suddenly became interested in what the two of you were doing,